Hi everyone, so in this video I just thought I'd demonstrate bonding two halves of a fiberglass structure together. Kind of useful if you do an accident, repair damage, or in this case quite a complicated moulding where you can only really do the detailed bits apart and then put them together and join them together. But for most of you I guess this will be quite useful if you're like repairing a panel that's been damaged, or you're maybe stiffening it up or whatever. So as you can see, this is a dashboard off GT40 that we've got to make for one of our customers, and so I've already laid the two halves up. What I've got to do now is bolt the mould back together and bond the join line. So the first thing to do is bolt the two halves of the mould back together. Right, so for this operation I'm going to need a few things. I need some resin. I've cut myself some strips of 600 gram chopped strand mat, trusty paint roller, blue stripe is solvent for use with solvents, stirring stick, latex gloves, laminator's roller, Cabasil, which I'll explain a bit more about in a minute, spare pot, and some catalyst. So the first thing I'm going to do is pigment the resin, make it white, and mix the catalyst into it. So a tiny bit of pigment, mix it in, and it will turn the resin white. And at the same time I need catalyst, 1% or slightly more. A day like today and a little job like this we can afford to use a bit more, it'll go off a bit quicker. Right, this is Cabasil, colloidal silica otherwise known as, and it's basically very fine powder you can mix with resin to make a bit of a slurry, and it's quite good for filling in holes, for helping transition between edges of fiberglass laminate and making sure there's plenty of stuff in there to make sure there's no air and no cracks. Put a little bit in a pot and mix in some resin. It's quite important that you use the same resin that you're going to lay up with, because then they'll go off at the same rate and there won't be any sort of shrinkage going on. And then you make it up into a little slurry. Like that, and then just paint it in with a paintbrush. Right, okay, just for the sake of speeding this up a bit, I've already laid up most of it, but essentially taking a strip of fiberglass mat, wet it out with the roller both sides. This is where a roller's nice, because you tend to end up getting just about the right amount of resin in it, rather than if you wet it out with a brush you can end up with tons of excess resin that you don't really need. Just throw it in rough to start with. What you find is that there's a bonding agent in the fiberglass that holds it all together so that you can work with it, and the resin breaks that down over the course of about 5 minutes, at which point it starts becoming way more pliable and easy to follow the shape. So if you just kind of throw it in to start with, don't worry too much about it, and then by the time you've finished putting your mat in everywhere, the bit that you started with is probably mushy enough to start conforming better to the mould shape. What I like to do is run the resin roller over it first. It tends to work the fibres into one another a bit better, and sort of gently stretches and shrinks the mat to conform to the shape. And it also helps consolidate a bit and push some of the resin all the way through the mat. So, and then with the roller, what you're trying to do here is you're making the mat conform to the shape of the mould, but really what you're doing at the same time is you're pushing the mat through the resin so that you've not got a resin rich surface which is brittle. You've pushed the fibres which have got all the strength in them as close to the mould face as possible. This helps work the cabosil and the fiberglass mat and resin into one another and into all the grooves and crooks and crannies. There you go. On a relatively simple, straightforward shape like this, or repair like this, you don't need to do loads of rolling, but if it's a shape like the rest of the dashboard and you really can't roll enough, it's hard to know when everything's perfectly rolled, but you really got to put a lot of effort into rolling, and it takes quite a while, because it's not until you take the part out of the mould that you really get to check what surface finish is like. And if you've got a great big hole somewhere, a bit of air, you ruin the job.